Ever since the very beginning of Jujutsu Kaisen, literally chapter 3 of the series, fans were wondering who would win, Sukuna with all of his fingers or Gojo while actually trying. For years and years, people theorized and debated, and it was finally answered in chapter 236 after all of these years. Or was it? Though the fight is now long over, it hasn't stopped the fandom from continuing the discussion, with one of the most popular, contentious, and controversial topics being Heian Sukuna versus Gojo. But there's one thing I don't think a lot of people realize they are missing, and I have some seen fans bring this specific matchup in particular. That is, the original one we've been talking about for years. Sukuna if he had gotten 20 fingers and achieved his semi-cursed state, and Gojo before his power swelled inside of the prison realm and likely got stronger with training within those 5 weeks. This is actually going to be an interesting discussion, and I will be tackling it from multiple angles and possibilities. And then, at the end, I will give my final thoughts on how Heian Sukuna would have fared against the strongest version of Gojo as well. So basically, this is 20-finger Sukuna, no spatial slash, versus Shibuya Gojo. If you guys end up enjoying this video, please do leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You can also join my Discord and follow me on Twitter. Those will be linked down below. Some of you are probably asking, didn't Sukuna need 10 shadows to defeat Gojo? Wouldn't it just be obvious that 20-finger Sukuna is inherently inferior to Gojo, even if he was in his Heian form? The answer to that is no, and this is outlined while Gojo was in his weird purgatory-like state in chapter 236. After he had been killed by Sukuna. Gojo recollects on his thoughts and says some very interesting things that lead to some massive power scaling implications. As he says that Sukuna was holding back, this is actually implied in 2 separate statements by Gojo. The first time he mentions it, he says that Sukuna did not go all out. He said again that Sukuna was not able to give it his all. On top of these 2 statements, Gojo himself says that even if Sukuna did not possess Megumi's 10 shadows, that he might not be able to defeat him. This throws a pretty big wrench into the notion that Sukuna had 0 chance of defeating Gojo if he did not possess the 10 shadows and used Mahoraga. Now I want to start by saying that there are different ways that the fandom perceive what Heian Sukuna is. Technically, Heian Sukuna should literally mean the Sukuna that lived during the Heian era, and that level of power that was a terror upon the world and the knowledge that he had. But this is not what a lot of fans have in mind. Some mean a hypothetical version of Sukuna where he has all the knowledge given to him by Kenjaku and what he's learned in the modern age. One thing that I want to get out of the way is that using current Sukuna in this debate would not only be unfair, as it would not answer the question that fans have in mind. As, again, this is about Sukuna before taking the 10 shadows for himself, and Sukuna did need Mahoraga to learn the spatial slash. And contrary to popular belief, it would be incredibly unlikely that Sukuna would ever learn to target space itself in order to bypass infinity and beat Gojo. But also using current Sukuna with his spatial slash would be incredibly redundant. If current Sukuna can already defeat the strongest version of Gojo, then of course, he would defeat the weaker version of him, the one that was sealed away in the prison realm during the Shibuya arc. I will talk about both versions of Sukuna here, but I will say it's pretty hard to compare the actual Heian Sukuna because we do not actually know what his other cursed tools do yet. So all we can really say is that he would be more disadvantaged than a non-10 shadows current Sukuna who lacked the spatial slash, because he would have a lot less knowledge. He would not know the weaknesses of Gojo's domain, that is that anyone he's touching will not be affected by Unlimited Void. He also likely would not know of domain amplification, because he likely learned that from Kenjaku as well, as he was the one who taught that to the disaster curses. Seeing as domain amplification is an advancement of simple domain, and that was one of the major things that aided him in this fight with Gojo, he would be at a significant disadvantage. Remember that simple domain is a lot older of a technique, so I don't think we know yet if domain amplification existed back in the Heian era. Now, what is the difference between 20-finger Sukuna and 20-finger Sukuna's true form, the Heian form that people call it? It seems to be implied by Kashimo's cursed technique Enhanced Perception that Sukuna, while he is in his Heian form, is actual perfection. This is even stated by the narrator himself. In this form, Sukuna has 4 arms and a mouth and a stomach. This is stated to give him a massive advantage over other sorcerers when it comes to casting, as his hands can perform other things while casting, he can cast faster, or even do multiple casts at once. This means he should be able to make both a stronger domain and do it faster, which will become very important later. Now the major debate that people have is the actual stats of this version of Sukuna, with some saying he's just as strong and fast as 20-finger Meguna. The only difference is the extra arms in the mouth, but I don't think this is the case. The narrator implies that Sukuna's physique was important to his power, and we can visibly see that he is far more muscular now. On top of this, if only having extra arms and a mouth was the difference that made Sukuna perfect, then Kashimo would not need X-ray vision to know that Sukuna had reached perfection. On top of this, we can see that Sukuna's cursed energy aura is enhanced upon returning to this form. but it could be this is his restored cursed energy that didn't necessarily increase it. But Heian Sukuna should be faster, stronger, and more durable than 20-finger Meguna, and also would have a significant advantage in casting with the extra arms and mouth. One thing I see a lot of people say about Gojo is that when he was in the Shibuya arc, he's just as strong as the Gojo in the current fight with Sukuna. And this is something that I actually disagree with. There are several things that indicate that Gojo got stronger, not only during his time in the prison realm, but also in the 5 weeks leading up to the showdown of the strongest. I will admit that it will be impossible to get an exact number on how much stronger Gojo got, but precision will not be needed, as we can just use lowballs to get a safe number. When I made my video on Gojo being stronger months ago, there were a lot of people telling me that I was wrong, and pretty much every single argument was bad. The first major one was that there was nothing for Gojo to do in prison realm, but it is then implied later that he learned how to make better barriers while he was in the prison realm. This is what allowed him to do this in the domain clashes with Sukuna, where he could not only condense the external size of the domain, but also flip the internal and external conditions of said domain. But it wasn't just Gojo's skill with barriers, it was also in terms of stats like power and speed that he improved upon. Gojo just overall got stronger as well in prison realm. We can actually deduce this just by looking at Gojo's physical appearance. Upon being released from prison realm, Gojo's physique has changed entirely. Before this, Gojo had an athletic build, but it was lean athletic with some muscle definition. Now Gojo looks like a Las Vegas personal trainer who claims to be natty. Now a lot of people say that Gojo is not more muscular than before, and that it was his baggy clothes that made him look lean. The issue is that the only thing baggy was his jacket. We can visibly see that Gojo's legs are far thicker now than they were before. Not only that, but his arms are now thicker than his old arm plus the fabric of his sleeve, which would mean that his arms are bigger now as well. It has been made apparent numerous times in the series that having elite base physicals will make you a lot stronger, more durable, and faster as a sorcerer, Yuji being a big example of this. There is ample time for Gojo to have gotten stronger, as it is implied to have been possible for a lot of perceived time to have passed while in prison realm. It could have been a very short amount of time, or it could have been a very long amount of time. Now, a lot of people attempted to debunk my old video from months ago by saying it is impossible for Gojo to have gotten stronger because there was nothing to eat in prison realm. Since muscles need food to grow, it just means that Gojo's muscles did not actually get bigger. But by that logic, if Gojo was in there for years, why didn't his muscles experience atrophy, which is muscle loss? Well, you can actually argue that the rules of prison realm stipulate that mages do not need to eat to survive, therefore they will not suffer muscle atrophy or fat loss. On the other hand though, I used to be a personal trainer, and I can realize the flaw with the quote-unquote debunk that Gojo could not possibly have put on muscle without food. The issue is that this is a severe misunderstanding of how the body and muscles work. When you lift weight, what you are actually doing is producing many micro tears within the muscle. This is why you often feel weak or sore after you work out, because your muscles are damaged. But with rest, water, and food, the muscle will repair itself, but it will actually go beyond that and make itself bigger and stronger, so the next time you work out, it can respond to that stimulus better than before. That's the whole reason why you get stronger or build muscle. Basically, muscle growth and getting stronger is literally just about your muscles healing themselves from the micro tears. Remember that food is just energy. Calories are literally energy. All we need for Gojo is for him to have access to some sort of advanced healing magic, then he will be able to bypass the typical muscle recovery process. And Gojo has reverse curse technique. He is literally using energy to repair himself, just like how your body uses energy to repair itself. And we know that he can use his powers inside of the prison realm because he did manifest his powers outside of the space shortly after he was sealed. So if we do know that it is possible for Gojo to have gotten stronger because he can replenish his muscles with RCT, then it is certainly possible for Gojo to have gotten stronger while in the prison realm. And if he is now visibly more buff, then that adds a lot of supporting evidence. Furthermore, we actually do see a serious Gojo clash with Meguna, and it's seemingly twice. There is no reason for Gojo to be holding back here, as he does have a killing intent, as he wants to kill Kenjaku, the source of all of his recent despair. Instead, not only is Sukuna fast enough to come out of nowhere and intercept Gojo, but he also counters the blow that was likely reinforced by Gojo's curse technique because of the explosion that it caused. Not only that, but if we look at this panel here and then this one, it looks like that both Sukuna and Gojo moved and did another clash in which it showed that they are pretty comparable here. What makes this really interesting is that this is just 15-finger Meguna. He has yet to eat 20 fingers. If we think about it, that means that Sukuna is at most 75% of his power. That's if we argue the fingers grant linear power growth, even though the story has implied it's exponential, as the fingers are growing stronger with each passing day, meaning that it's actually likely that Sukuna is far less than 75% of his power here, but still countered 2 of Gojo's curse technique amped attacks. There is sufficient reason that the two are comparable as Maguna actually wants to fight Gojo right now and thinks he can kill Gojo even with only 15 fingers. He just didn't because he was following Kenjaku's orders. Gojo does also double down and say that he would win, but this is after he just said that they would fight in 5 weeks, meaning that Gojo could be saying that he will win after 5 weeks of training, whereas Maguna actually thinks he can take on Gojo and defeat him. And sorry, yes, I do say Maguna a lot, it's just been in my head because of the fandom calling him Maguna. Maguna is Sukuna, it's just Sukuna in Megumi's body, whereas Maguna actually thinks he can take on Gojo and defeat him right now, even with only 15 fingers of power. My point is that 15-finger Maguna is shown to be high relative in speed and power to Gojo. I am not saying that Maguna would actually win that fight, as Gojo would have other techniques that could put him above, but it does show that they are actually comparable. But what actually implies that Gojo got stronger over the 5 weeks between chapter 221 and 223. While Gojo and Sukuna are still close in power, Gojo has a clear advantage in their rematch, even though Sukuna now has the equivalent of 20 fingers worth of cursed energy, as he ate 4 fingers and then ate the mummy that compensated for the missing finger. On top of that, Maguna was losing to Gojo in his own domain. Domain expansions give the caster a stat buff. Even weaker, incomplete domains like Megumi's could give him a 20% stat buff. This should mean that Sukuna is nearly twice as powerful as he was the last time if you go by the linear percentages, but likely far more than twice as strong that the fingers are indeed exponential. It wouldn't really make sense for Maguna to have gotten around twice as powerful, but still be getting thrown around by a Gojo whose curse technique is inactive and is getting cut up by the sure hits of his technique. But remember, we are comparing Shibuya Gojo versus 20-finger Sukuna here. Shibuya Gojo should be weaker than the one who was released from Prison Realm. What this means is that 15-finger Maguna is a little bit faster and stronger than Shibuya Gojo. 20-finger Maguna is going to be considerably faster and stronger, but still not enough to one-shot or blitz Gojo. Then we'd have this reincarnated form, which would be a little bit stronger and faster. So if this version of Sukuna with no 10 shadows and no spatial slash were to fight Gojo from Shibuya, he would actually have a significant upper hand. Remember that one of the main reasons that Gojo was able to hold his own was because of his speed, power, and hands. In this instance, he'll be faced with someone who is considerably faster and stronger than him, has 4 arms, and a cursed tool. Modern Sukuna can use domain amplification and can likely surround his cursed tool with it to attack Gojo as well. I believe that Sukuna having 4 arms will also mitigate a lot of the martial arts prowess that Gojo has, especially if he already surpasses him in stats. But this does not mean that Gojo does not have a chance to win. Red attacks should give Sukuna fits since they are twice as strong as his blue attacks. And if you were able to create and land a hollow purple, we already know that Sukuna cannot fully nullify them with domain amplification. But that was also a weaker Sukuna versus a stronger Gojo. It is likely in this scenario that he would actually be strong enough to use his domain amplification on hollow purple a lot better. Also, if Gojo does his maximum techniques, it should give Sukuna some troubles as well. But of course, everything will lead up to a domain expansion, which I don't think this is going to go well for Gojo in this scenario. Sukuna is going to be faster and cast faster with 4 arms and an extra mouth, and it will probably make a stronger domain. In their real fight, their first domain clash was an even clash. This time, it wouldn't be. Sukuna likely wins that first clash without even attacking from the outside, because this is a stronger Sukuna versus a weaker Gojo. In this scenario, it is definitely possible for Gojo to do what he did in the original fight and discover a way to repair his burnt out curse technique with RCT. The issue is that if Sukuna already had a clear advantage against Shibuya Gojo, and now gets a likely 20% amp from his domain buff, is Gojo really going to last this time? I think there's a good chance that he doesn't even last, and even if he does use RCT to repair his technique, he would just lose the domain clash again, and also teach Sukuna how to do it. As the reason why I was able to actually put up a battle against Sukuna was because he was able to keep flipping the conditions of the barrier. Because Shibuya Gojo had not experienced the Prison Realm, he cannot do this. It's as simple as this. Their domain clashes were equal in the first round, but now we have an even stronger Sukuna with better casting and a weaker Gojo. It would no longer be equal. Sukuna would have the clear advantage. And sure, Gojo could use RCT to heal this version of Sukuna's cuts, but I don't think it would be enough for him to last as long as he did. I doubt he can keep up like he did in the original fight. One thing that could change the fight is Black Flash. But Black Flash is kind of a luck thing. If we redo the Gojo vs Sukuna fight 10 times, Gojo likely has several rounds where he doesn't get it at all, and I doubt he'd have more than a few where he would have multiple Black Flashes in a single fight. On the other hand, Sukuna would also have the chance to get a Black Flash in their fight as well. Gojo can win if he somehow traps Sukuna in an unlimited void, or catches him off guard with a hollow purple. The unlimited void is basically a win condition because Sukuna in this version, would not be able to use Megumi as a scapegoat, and there would be no Mahoraga to save him in this scenario. Now, if we are literally bringing in Heian-era Sukuna with likely no domain amplification and no knowledge of Gojo's abilities, I think that's actually a more interesting fight. The reason for that is that current Sukuna knows that he cannot play around with Unlimited Void, whereas Heian Sukuna would likely not know that. If Sukuna is playing around and gets overconfident and thinks he can overpower Gojo's domain through sheer force of will and strength, he'd get offed just like Gojo did. I think this Gojo is far more likely to win because of Sukuna's lack of knowledge of the Unlimited Void, and he'd have a much tougher time of getting past Gojo's Infinity without domain amplification and being forced to use simple domains. But even he and Sukuna should have the advantage in a domain clash. We don't know if Unlimited Hollow Purple was an ability Gojo had in Shibuya, but even if it was, I don't think it's necessarily a win condition. At least if Sukuna's on guard. A weaker Sukuna took a stronger Gojo's Unlimited Hollow Purple and actually survived it. So when it comes down to the original question, take this Gojo, take this Yuji, give Yuji the remaining fingers and let him incarnate, who wins? I think it's actually going to be Sukuna the majority of the time. Now when it comes down to who wins, Hiei and Sukuna versus the strongest version of Gojo, that one's a lot more debatable. If you want me to make a video on that topic, let me know. But as it stands, if Shibuya Gojo had to face off against a 20-finger Sukuna who had the knowledge of the modern age, I do not think it would go well for him. Though, as always, he has a chance to win. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And you can also join my Discord and follow me on Twitter, linked down below. I'm on winter break, so I'm going to be more active in my Discord, so if you have any questions for me directly, join the Discord, and you can ask away. And also I'm doing members videos every week, so if you guys do want more Broku content, become a member and get access to those. With that being said, hope you guys all have an amazing day. Peace out.